Hello, this is Jason Mundragon. Welcome to my podcast Universal Consciousness, where I'm taking on everything in the universe and making it comprehensible to the collective consciousness. This will be the pinnacle of my first season. I will end it on reincarnation and karma. This season laid the groundwork for the next realizations of our dual existence, and possibly unifying as was meant from beginningless time. And so, let's get started. I feel I must give a brief outline of reincarnation once again to continue. I must add two new understandings to be able to move forth. 1. Collective beings reincarnate, they are able to gain new consciousness and apply this to their future development. 2. Outer beings incarnate, they are corrupted by the outer universe and thus not given any new consciousness upon their incarnations until they are free from this cycle. 3. Perfected beings manifest, incarnate, and reincarnate depending upon their reasoning. They manifest when creating avatars. This can be achieved to any place within the universe that is known to them. If not known, then they cannot. They incarnate when merged with a planetary evolution. When doing this, they have accepted existing within a direct region of the universe until that portioned area achieves collective freedom. When incarnating in this way, they choose to take on the challenge of not gaining consciousness through source, but are strong enough to amass experience. Lastly, they reincarnate. They must live out a single life but are free conscious beings after the body ends. They do this to experience the overall understandings of the forms. Perfected beings generally hail from the higher hierarchies, and these abilities are of consciousness alone. 4. Star beings technologically control their life cycles through various forms of memory transplant, bioengineering, or cybernetic advancements. Star beings physically travel throughout the universe. This can be from dimensional, teleportational, or physical. Any advanced form of manipulation of matter to transport themselves. These beings will not hail from consciousness but can easily be of a kind alignment for the better percentage of them. There are limits to the distances they can travel, so will generally keep close records of universal movements and their windows of opportunities to explore vast amounts of their areas. Star beings, if within our region of the universe, hail from a most ancient of waters evolution here on Earth and are of mind alone. This is just to add to our understanding for later. I wanted to present this so that we can have a clearer understanding of the impact some of these beings have had on our development both consciously and intelligently. We can also now give placement to some of our greatest leaders within the past and future. Examples being Hermes Trismegistus, as one whose impact on wisdom can easily be placed deriving from deep in minds, and thus water's evolution. Another note to the Emerald Tablets for those familiar is the greater beings that reside deep within pyramids. These beings are in a comatose status and therefore not of the regulatory cycles of Earth's conscious beings. The Anunnaki, star beings easily defined as water's evolution. Krishna and Buddha, speaking from consciousness and thus towards Earth's evolution. The Buddha, being unique because he began in water's evolution and surpassed it in Earth's evolution, while doing so creating a path for others to follow. Greater beings spring forth in so many unique ways that we can only be conscious and enjoy the variety and beauty of this. Later forms of conscious levels began to formulate all throughout the world. This was initially the plane of mind's attempt to grasp consciousness in the way others had throughout history. Among some of these theories we have Holder's 3 levels of consciousness, Barrett's 7 levels of personal consciousness, and Gibson's 4 states of consciousness. All very much stimulated through the intelligent impulse in addition to a few combined theories that was perhaps too complex to take serious roots. Many attempts have been made in so many varied ways, yet none have confronted the dual aspects of our natures. The dual understandings of Eastern thought dwindle as consciousness continues to find new ways of presenting itself to new generations. Currently this is in the form of aura spectrum, cosmic personalities, spiritual astrology, and many chakra-related beliefs. Most teachings become convoluted once the concepts of time enter into their teachings. True consciousness is beyond time, so to consider the omniconscious making a dedicated promise to perform some acts within particular timeframes is at the most mentally fabricated. Placing time spans on any form of spiritual conclusion will inevitably denote when that particular teaching was infected with a loss in consciousness. Or this can be that these postulations are of a mind mystic, their ability to postulate outcomes are percentage-based as they contemplate current events. As a human species, there are concrete times that are known to us which will be facts, and there are fictitious beliefs that in no way possible can be truth. As spirits there are concrete truths that are factually known, and periods in our existence which we know never occurred. This is because consciousness is a continuation from source and any capable of connecting knows all that is, and was. Futuristic postulations are not of consciousness. Consciousness has little need to know what will be because consciousness manifests what is. The amount of consciousness may determine an outcome of a future event because it is capable of seeing all that is occurring within its existence. But events are changing moment by moment, and thus consciousness must stay vigilant and not accept instantly what it conceived previously. Eckhart Tolle and his teachings brought this through quite clearly in his book The Power of Now. I will bring forth some truth for realization of consciousness. Intelligence will attempt to find reasons to accept these truths as expected, and we must find it in our wisdom to give allowance for this. Earth's evolution must guide water's evolution with compassion to achieve true unity. 1. Consciousness knows all of consciousness. 2. Consciousness knows all of recorded time. 3. Consciousness knows all form. 4. Consciousness has compassion to all of creation. 5. Consciousness will manifest light. 6. Consciousness will manifest its form. 7. Consciousness will manifest its environment. Understand that we are conscious beings knowing all that is within our cycles of consciousness. Only the omni-conscious knows all that is both within the known universe and beyond. Many greater beings are not of consciousness, and none are omni-conscious. This has caused them to believe themselves capable of directing the universe as they see fit among our evolutions. Spoken of in Buddhist concepts of planes, these are places where gods, demigods, and elder gods constantly battle for superiority of the universe. Other among the greater beings are intelligent, they too have grand-scale battles deep within the universe for regional control. Only few of the greater beings have grasped the truth and were permitted into the embrace of the higher hierarchies to guide Earth's evolution towards freedom. Working from number 1 to 3 on the list will be what is considered the last 3 stages of water's development into consciousness. It is not until step 4 is known that they would achieve the compassion for all beings, therefore many star beings would be better understood beyond this point. Same would be true for our religious/spiritual belief systems when looking at what is commanded by their godheads, and what is expressed by their followings. We can only conclude that water's evolution has very prominently structured our paths for quite some time now. Ye shall know them by their fruits, is all that could be added. Collective universe reincarnations. I thought that I would give us a bit more clarity to have when these times present themselves in our cycles. Perhaps the most sought-after understanding would be why is the consciousness lost during these lifetime cycles? Not to be mysterious, but is it really? Each one of us have had brief concepts about another life and have quickly dismissed them. For the soul within the collective that doesn't have control over their reincarnations, it's not as complicated. To be reincarnated takes a willing mind. Somewhere within the process we must accept wanting a new life. This new life comes with new input from consciousness, and a new chance to experience physical form while advancing our own personal development. At this point we already accepted that we are going to outlive this next body. But the communication between us and our guides aren't at all verbal. We do not sit down with pen and paper to decide our next lifetime and lessons. Souls communicate through consciousness, a mind we haven't fully awakened to at this stage. Impressions of great intensity can flood our minds. We will see the entire new life before we reincarnate, but the lessons will never be learned if we knew what was to inevitably come. We seat ourselves in a slumber and the guide places us back into the physical world. We must decide on this. If we wish to go back, then we must place ourselves in a slumbering state. Many have stayed for hundreds of years before deciding. Some cultures have developed beliefs that visiting and gaining blessings from their ancestors is needed, and so we stay to impart wisdom to our generations until these beliefs cease. Either through obligations or enjoyment we stay until we are ready. We seat ourselves to protect the integrity of our true selves. When being reborn into the world we are given new consciousness. This is done in our slumbering form that is encased and protected. When entering through the birthing process we are bombarded with personalities from our genetic line and our race. These personalities will attempt to mold us into their concept of the current world understandings. The genetic personality is dependent upon each of your parents' lifetime of experiences. If they are in conflict with themselves in any way, perhaps haven't accepted their lives or are in internal struggle with their experiences in life, this will be impressed upon you. Many times a positive parent's experience will phase out a negative parent. The race personality can also be in conflict. In most cases where different races are involved there are internal struggles that each parent may have had to find peace with. Each race personality comes with a force of ownership on this new form. If each parent has identified with their race personality, then this personality would in turn attempt ownerships of us. If in fact, both or one parent has conquered their race personality, then you will be free from its impressions. Throughout this process we are seated and safe within our encasement, and upon birth these personalities will begin to form us as we grow. Here we can find great and unique features formed from our genetic and race personalities. They are blending and finding a way to harmonize in form. This seed with our true selves will remain encased but will begin to emanate. This usually is what occurs the moment we begin to remember our experiences as children. Some children begin to remember experiences as young as 1 year of age, where others' first remembered experience could be at 3. This speaks to the amount of time they were in conflict with these personalities. In a perfect scenario, both parents have conquered fully their own personalities. This newborn will be free and joyous from birth, and there is a feeling of great lightness to their energy. The true self will take charge of these other personalities upon waking and seek to organize what they have considered harmonizing already. The moment the true self wakens, they become fully connected to the physical world, and with it karmic strings begin to form the already established genetic and race personalities. This doesn't happen instantly, for these strings are tracing themselves back to the beginning of their lines, and wherein turbulations have occurred. Our personal karma doesn't officially begin until the chakras become established, each individual to our needs. In children born with deficiencies, they are generally brought forth from either parent. This is hard to be accepted still. For we have placed so much faith in our science, and since science has not fully grasped this, we have not. In cases where neither parent is responsible, a few things may need to be considered. The soul chose to reincarnate this way to help either parent's karma to ripen. An awakened being chose this lifetime to experience this for reasons unknown to us. The collective consciousness has plans that we may only know throughout the lifetime of these children. I can think of cases when parents were incredible supporters of disability laws that may not have taken the stance if they did not have to confront it within their own families. Remember that souls live in a universe of cause and reason. We must always look for a deeper meaning behind the physical situations we find ourselves in. Most time they are there to take us to new heights within the collective universe. A fragmented soul. In the event that you are a fragmented soul and not a true soul, which is spoken of throughout my work, you can fragment either within the collective or outer universe. In both cases you will bypass genetic and race lines through your conception into the physical universe. During formation within the womb, this fragmented soul seed will pick and choose what traits it desires from both parents when born in the collective. In the collective, these traits will be designed to pull the entire family into a higher state of consciousness, if learned. However, will also particularly pull in past negative traits when in the outer. These negative traits will revive past race conflicts and family personalities from the genetic line. Parents will be left wondering how the children show personalities of relatives that mostly bothered them. For it is the outer universe's way of keeping you locked to your pain. This has nothing to do with karma. I keep this section brief, for it would do no good to attempt to give an in-depth understanding. The pathways and experiences are so varied, each situation would have to be looked at separately. Outer universe incarnations. 2 things to note: a collective being will mostly be born in the collective universe. An infective being will mostly be born to the outer universe. The gray area here is when a being is struggling to free themselves from corruption. They may jump back and forth and will just need guided consciousness to break this cycle. We can see this in collective souls giving birth to children they have conflicted misunderstandings with, especially on viewpoints of common humanity. Of course, children go through their stages, but this is very different. There is a core value that the parents both possessed but just couldn't instill within the children. This gray area leaves with it a host of open complexities that must be looked at in future writings. But the collective parent will need contemplation before action. Conscious observation with confronting truth will give to them the steps to progress. Understand that this child gained an understanding that brought them forth into the collective, or they would not have been born here. They now need to find a way through the residue left from being corrupted. Generally, we cannot conceive of an infective being and a collective being bringing forth a reincarnation. For infective beings in a relationship with a collective being, will quickly infect the collective being. In the unfortunate event that rape occurs to a collective being, there is a grace period when the collective being struggles to find acceptance of the event. If they do, they will have the opportunity to cleanse the baby forming within them, which is a power granted only at this time. I have personally witnessed this, and it is miraculous, but the toughest to achieve internally from the mother-to-be. This grace period will generally be during early stages as the baby is forming. Should she conquer her own suffering and remain a collective being, the child will be placed into the collective this lifetime. Should she become an infective being, so too will the child. Should she only achieve cleansing herself after birth, then the baby will be infective, but at least still holds the ability of being raised by a collective being. This is an even greater understanding that mothers hold over the blessings of life. To be an infective being will incarnate you time and again in an infective family. This continues the cycle of corruption. You come into the world with no new consciousness of the planet's progression of understandings and viewpoints. Just the negative viewpoints that you have gained from prior lives, which will be impressed and coded onto your true self's encasing. This entropic force travels with you like a parasite clung to your true self, When all stages of genetic and race personalities come forth, they will do the same as before. But in most cases, you will be hindered by two already infected parents, adding their unconscious experiences with these personalities. Once you begin to emanate from your true self, it must first get through the dark mass that has surrounded you, which is an assemblage of viewpoints not of truth. You can continue this amassing continuously, thickening and strengthening itself every time you agree with these viewpoints. The events that can help during this time will weaken the false viewpoints and even at times give you a sense of clarity. Feeling warmth and kindness from others, which is freely given without an attachments. Conscious beings looking at you and piercing through the mass to connect to your true self. Karma from past deeds ripening to grant you blessings. Or you deciding to not succumb to these viewpoints and look for a way out of them. We see this last part done endlessly, beings rising out of their suppressed situations and becoming their own heroes. If they do so and develop the kindness and compassion for others in general hardships, then they can fully free themselves. But if they do so with the negative viewpoint of self-survival and it persists, then they have just added to their corruption. Observance. This is a consciously evolved way to understand reincarnation. It is universal and has within it many forms of ancient philosophies. The collective consciousness maintained much more strict and complex teachings for many centuries. It was necessary to keep the corruption at bay. But now it is presented to excel us, and hopefully be easier to absorb into our growing consciousness. Awakened reincarnation. Now I would like to discuss an awakened being's reincarnation. Their cyclings will be very different compared to the collective being who is not awakened. Awakened ones have already achieved the lessons we are still learning. They will only take on a challenge if it becomes something of interest to them. For instance, if in a lifetime they become curious of another being's experience. This might make an impression that they would wish to experience to gain knowledge of, or to free themselves of feeling concerned. Their reincarnations are mainly theirs to design. When passing they continue this process until they have gained a love and compassion for all beings. They seek to weed out all individual concerns and find a compassion which encompasses all of creation. They can just as easily reincarnate into infective families, but this is generally acceptable once fully awakened. There have been numerous awakened beings set back a few lifetimes due to this. They were still too young and couldn't fully take on the onslaught once the outer universe became aware of them. They were unfortunately then responsible for giving a push in consciousness to the outer universe. Though not forbidden by the higher council, it is not fully acceptable unless done with a group effort. A fully awakened being does this by concealment, a gift gained on higher levels of awareness. They can go through an entire lifetime and never be noticed, while freeing the souls within the corruption. They are just seen as barely accepted with their infective communities, these awakened being end their experience generally leaving to show others the possibilities. But will stand their ground if they gain a group willing to grow. There have been stories of awakened beings reincarnating to free a prior soul they knew once, but this rarely turned out well. The already binding connection to the now infected being was to the detriment to the awakened being, forcing the awakened to cleanse itself for a while. The ways in which awakened beings reincarnate are as follows. Temporary loss of awareness and mind. The awakened being does this to gain a full experience of the life reincarnated into. This being will exhibit an overabundance of interest and fascination with life. More so than the average child, this child's questionings about life will be extremely insightful, critically piecing together all that it is told. Even calling parents on any missteps in their teachings. Though extremely respectable and ethical, they are capable of debating on an unreal level to the parents at times. If understood and not hindered by the parents, these ancient souls will justifiably push all family members' awareness up. Locked. These reincarnations are marked with key scenarios that must occur in specific means for the awakened soul to come into full awakening. This form of reincarnation can take on many lifetimes until these events take place. This is not generally the choice of the awakened being, but can be foreseen by higher sources to the awakened. If accepting, they will be granted a guardian to oversee their travels. Once achieved, full awareness instantly granted and what was to be understood or learned is taken into consciousness. Complete awareness with a set purpose of their life's path. No surprises, all other beings are met as if they were expecting them. They can exhibit higher than normal emotions when surprised, mainly because they did not see it beforehand. It's generally delighted. Assisted, awareness is lost, so that another awakened being must assist their life path. This teacher generally knows but will not openly explain. This could be signified as a test for either soul. To become a teacher or a student. Forgotten. This awakened being has decided to discipline itself. It will take it upon itself due to events that has harmed its consciousness. They will secure their true self and bounce around throughout lifetimes until they've found realization to what presented the trouble in the first place. They must see for themselves why they did such a thing, and usually the key lies with their forgiveness of themselves. No other aware being can break this. They may gain integrals of insight and feel their consciousness being contained. Forced, on few occasions, if an awakened being consciously does harm to another aware being or greater. The awakened being may be judged by collective consciousness or the High Council to be cut off from consciousness, yet given just enough flow to stay within collective reincarnation. Perhaps not wanting these actions to be influential within new consciousness. This awakened being will essentially move to the status of a collective being and will stay there until past events are cleansed from them. Light being reincarnation. These beings have a reincarnation that easily moves throughout lifetimes. Their higher consciousness oversees ours collectively. They can be from the plane of holy but can easily be from anywhere from the known universe. When holy beings do this, it grants them access to becoming a greater being and joining us in a higher plane. Other light beings may already hail from higher consciousness and just seek to assist our development. What few know, however, is the sacrifices made when coming into Earth's evolution. They give up their attachments to their own realm, and no longer possess the means to go back until the Earth beings have evolved collectively to do such. They now exist here on Earth going through lifetimes assisting us. They have unmatched skills as being spiritually far more evolved. Primarily visiting us in astral forms, but will physically manifest avatars with little effort when needed. They are very aware of all thoughts within the collective and on many occasions will present themselves to get a full understanding on where we are at consciously. We have most likely met them many times on our journeys and have not fully understood how just looking into their eyes has changed our perspectives. They do not become personally involved in our lives, for we still have too much of a grasping quality. They do not seek to lead us astray by us looking at them as gods. The kindest thing for us is to oversee from afar. But they await a time when they can meet us on common ground. Other beings may visit from the collective universe, but they have not made such a sacrifice as these types. The reincarnated light beings here would most likely be easily overlooked by most awakened and below collective beings. Greater beings will know them well, for they are more capable of understanding their commitments to a greater good. Almost 20 years ago I was fortunate to be graced with the Archangel Michael. He appeared as a wanderer, slightly scruffy. Beyond perfection in appearance, I was never sure if it was an unplanned meeting. I at the time preferred to keep myself hidden, but he definitely saw me when he peered into my soul. After that day, though I have never met him again physically, I am forever aware of his existence on this planet. The melancholy he is towards our current state of awareness, and the frustration to not being able to fight outright. Though his personality isn't what we would expect, he has lived many a life in service of our greater good in mind. And will do so until we collectively advance. There are many who I have quietly come to understand both good and bad, though I choose to step out, I do so knowing that there will be others. Piecing all of our consciousness to achieve greater heights. It is my goal to give to the collective consciousness a complete, concise, and comprehensive understanding of reincarnation. This does stem from all prior knowledge gained throughout history. Many teachings present to us a fragment of this understanding. I will not realize it in its entirety, and decide consciously from here on. This is now brought forth in the light from those of universal mind, which I call our physical form, that evolved through the plane of water. And our Earth's evolution which joined these forms through the source of consciousness. As we now know, consciousness must move into form to grow. One laid the groundwork for the other, however all are of consciousness, therefore capable of growth. Growing together is what is now needed. I will now continue with karma and have added how we can view this should we raise our consciousness. Karma. This topic won't be particularly easy, since so much has been written on this topic. I want to simply add new perspectives. In no way believe that karma is for an infected being only. Karma operates beyond the outer universe and these influences are carried by our astral forms via the time chakra/rhythm. Rhythm keeps all karma closely recorded for each soul since our birth within Earth's evolution. These karmic actions and thoughts operate in all recorded existence. Do unto others, which you would have them do unto you has become a saying all on the planet has heard. Many times, we have said this to ourselves internally. There are many times our feelings give to us insights that something bad may occur. We were either right or wrong, however, yet both scenarios present an experience to learn from. So why then do we put ourselves through such suffering? One reason is that we don't listen to our own wisdom, and for all the other trillions of reasons, there's karma. Karma is much more than a Hindu word meaning know thyself. Karma is the known history of all this world both physically and spiritually and how it affects you or how you affect it. This isn't a hard task, just a way of understanding and living. We simply need to know the yin and yang of karma and thought. Don't worry, it's the turn of the millennium, We aren't needed to study intense meditations for the rest of our lives. These plateaus of awareness have been achieved for us already. In that I mean that humankind as an entire species has already performed the research and requirements needed to give us the spiritual understandings we have today. They have done this, and it has been placed into collective consciousness and can now be utilized by all. We just need to acknowledge the truth and follow the guidelines. Here, karma being the guiding balance to all the energy in this universe and beyond is composed of two forms, positive and negative. Positive karma comes into effect as the result of balanced energy. This is shown in larger degrees within the embodiments of spiritually aware beings or greater. This is the reason why we balance our influential chakras. With the balance comes pure thought, a place in our awareness. Here we have handled all negative karma in our own universe and now seek to present this journey to the collective consciousness. Pure thought is our truest gift as spirits. With it we are able to tap the sources of life and simply manifest it into creation. To balance this ultimate power and to make sure it's not used poorly, there is negative karma energy. Negative karma is created when a legitimate wrongdoing has occurred. In prime elements it manifests into plagues or any natural world disaster. Wars are considered humankind's control over nature and themselves and is in fact negative karmic energy at work. In human chakras, it manifests into blocked chakras throughout the human's life and in some cases even future lives. This is the reason why we never get anything done in our personal lives of any true importance. Negative karma takes over our every move as impure thought. These are thoughts that may seem to be our own, but if we have not acknowledged and understood who we are, everything we attempt to do negative karma will puppeteer us. I hope this did not frustrate some of you. If we are truly happy within one or some other chakras, then there's a good possibility that it's operating unblocked and in good health. In addition, we all know the difference between right and wrong. Negative karma is formed whenever pain or suffering occurs to the extent that it threatens another spirit's survival or awareness and there is no form of amends made. This causes the natural order to spiritual and physical life to fabricate, leaving a breach in time and rooting all familiar entities and energy to that scene. That scene will knowingly affect those spiritual bodies over and again until in some way or form a similar scene produces a positive effect, hence repairing the breach. The scenes can sometimes play over and again until we get it. The hassle is when throughout life we collect more karma that is negative, and we tend to become deeply disturbed. So, when the point in time comes around so that we can repair the original breach, we are cluttered, confused, and make even more wrong decisions. I address negative karma more because this is where we are currently. Though I know there are some of us who have aspects of our lives in balance, we all have some type of negative karma working in our lives. Going back to the opening, this is the reason why we don't listen to our sound wisdom and we place ourselves in regret and pain. Most of the things we do has an outside influence, and karma operates beyond the physical world. When we balance our chakras, we accept these influences and understand where they come from. Dismissing and repairing these negative karmic experiences for ourselves will in turn balance our awareness into purity. You actively and consciously fix the breach instead of waiting for the next occurrence. It isn't just our experiences that make us different, it is the way in which we confront the experiences and better them. That shows our true inner strength and character. If there are wrongs that you feel you should make amends for, do what feels right in your heart to better the situation. Every situation will be handled differently. However, it must be stimulated by you and no other force, otherwise you miss the experience and wisdom to be gained from the situation. Only you truly know what you need to do. We as spirits can assist once the decision has been made, or we can teach specifics when the spirit has balanced their current physical life. I will wrap this up by stating this: positive karma is the road that we are on, and negative karma is the obstacles we come upon. When we clear the obstacles for ourselves, the knowledge emerges in us upon the roadway as awareness that balances our pathway and takes us to our true destinies. Secret to life. I have simplified all that I have understood and all that could be understood in a single list of 10. They're simple acts of wisdom that I hope will enhance your life. They are collected truths, and may take some contemplation to fully absorb. The 10 truths to life. 1. If you trust in life, it will always take care of you. 2. If you are unsure, it will help you with options. 3. If you are sure, it'll give it to you. 4. If you live to destroy life, it will destroy you. 5. If you help life, you will prosper. 6. If you have wronged life, you will need to make amends. 7. If you do not, you will create negative karma. 8. Negative karma will always balance itself out one day, no exceptions. 9. You will always have the power to control karma when it is balanced and pure energy. 10. When it's unbalanced, every wish or desire becomes a design to balance it out. Karmic observations. In spiritually practical terms, good can be defined as anything that is beneficial to our inner growth and serves to heighten our conscious awareness. There are stories of Buddhist masters not speaking what the individual wanted to hear, but what they needed to hear. This would at times be viewed as a lie to the follower, stimulating an understanding that it was in fact truth that they were hard-pressed to confront. In the end, unlocking some blocks in consciousness would move the individual to higher states of awareness. It is known that only those with the power to look into the spirit's mind and karmic path would possess the wisdom to pull them out and onto the right path. Christianity formed this same concept by releasing all power to the one God. It is common for followers to say that God doesn't give to you what you want, but what you need. Should this take the form of hardships, it is considered God's will. We will vary on our viewpoints of this topic only due to our unique paths we have traveled. We may even observe wrongs as a way to understand the positive world in which we can create. Be it karma, God's intentions, or our personal experiences, the concept of good has become meshed in segregated beliefs in the modern world. Perhaps, due to large corporations and politicians dragging our belief in goodwill through the mud one too many times, we repeatedly give energy to those who claim to have our best benefits in mind but later find the complete opposite in their later actions and concealed meetings. This becomes increasingly harder for political leaders when considering massive populations, for as it is said, you will never please everyone, all of the time. While we are here looking at the massive populations, we should note that on a global scale we have prospered beyond many species on this planet. Through incredible amounts of hardships in spurts throughout our history, we have still turned out on top of it all. Our goodwill for one another, though at times simply for our own groups, has still shone through it all and have allowed us to build societies for centuries to come. I believe it is these stabilized civilizations that were our end goals all along. Over time, they have allowed us to find some order within our lives, then in turn allow us to seek conscious awareness. Depending on our viewpoints and spiritual understandings, universally we are on a course to collective consciousness as a whole. On the opposite end of the spectrum, being spiritually practical, we can define evil as anything that is harmful to our inner growth and serves to hinder our conscious awareness. This may not be from direct influence of society's growth, but perhaps a byproduct. Here we would find entire generations that could have added to our spiritual awareness through their experienced wisdoms depleted and wiped away. Plants and animals that may have given to us insights into our inner workings, cures for diseases, or examples to how to live at one with the planet completely extinct. Or even destruction to the planet that is beyond repair and hinders our spiritual growth due to now scattered and unhealthy forming societies. In our religions and spiritual beliefs, there are evil forces or evil gods, but they rarely represent the prime gods of these structures, and through our understandings of them they are capable of being conquered with specific efforts. They are given places to reside over and rule us only when we have lost a willingness to walk a righteous path, or when we are no longer considered among the living. We must understand that we are not inherently evil. For us to transgress to such low states, we would have to intentionally understand that we are destroying another life, and be willing to do so for no other gain other than the pure pleasure of doing it. Most of the evils that are performed by humankind are with the unconscious notions that they must be performed to better their own, or others' survival. In war they view sacrificing a few for the greater good, and this concept dislodges the conscious evil in their actions, however not making it right. It's only after time, when some soldiers become entwined with the joy of killing and seek out the pleasure of it, that it becomes inherently evil. Politicians and corporations in general only seek their profits through expansions and growth, and so if they destroy life in the process, they lead with the unconsciousness that they are making a better world. It's only when personal agendas such as prejudices and superiority complexes underline their decisions that inherent evil actions are performed under the guise of economic growth. Being evil, and being corrupted with unconscious thoughts, are two completely different scenarios. It's here, within the definitions of evil, that the spirits have begun to speak out and awaken. Within the concepts of good we prosper towards truth. We understand that even through hardships there is still room for spiritual growth as a whole. However, with an over-encompassing shadow of evil influencing the planet as a whole, there would be no such future. Extinctions and destructions though may be common in the universe, it should not be common here within us as a species. We are born innately to be good and socialize with one another. This has been an ultimate key to the way in which we have prospered. We traveled and traded, bartered, and learned new cultures which enriched our own as well as it has enlightened our understandings of the planet. This is now threatened by only a handful of large names in control of the entire planet which have shown themselves to be unconcerned with spiritual growth. The collective consciousness has begun to stir souls out of this slumbering repetitious cycle of life and death. We are born into a life that is unsatisfactory, and this urge is stronger than the society's pressures to mold into it and fit in. We as spirits are pulling ourselves forward and showing others that there are new ways to exist and be happy at the same time. We are in every walk of life, and our spiritual leaders from the past to the present are leading the way. Our guideposts are love, peace, and prosperity. We build on the foundation of our own conscious awakening through various means. Then we join with one another in harmony as we understand our great commonalities. All that we observe and understand as consciously awakened beings is being processed within the collective consciousness. Collectively, we are manifesting a new world. A world that is based on our fundamental natures. Our pullback is from the physical world that has lived by a self-created philosophy of technology and hard facts for centuries now. But there isn't a form of battleground or war to the conscious minds, there is simply the onward growth towards inner peace, reconnecting to like minds, and source. Infused together, we will reinvent a world where spirits can be born into aware states of consciousness and no longer fight through the beginning stages of loss or confusion throughout their adolescence. Here is where the lines are drawn. Those of us who see this world for its possibilities, and those of us who conceive it to be nothing more than a means to an end. As time marches us on towards the outcome, the physical world becomes tensed with fear to living a new path outside of what they've known for so long. While the spiritual world delights in knowing that it's becoming what it once was so long ago. Time being an obstacle to both types of society should be understood and not controlled. Consciousness of time. Many times, we fail to observe the events that are happening around us each day. Unlocking insights to karma is directly connected to our conscious state. Our very consciousness can point to understandings that we are too busy to see. Time in this concept is the actions we perform in our daily lives. If we but elevate our consciousness during these times, we would astoundingly understand so many insights to our paths. Some of us might be constantly late to events or get there right as the events are closing down. Others may be so eager or nervous about being late that we are extremely early, pushing our way through every street light and stop sign. While some of us will arrive exactly on time to events, every action leading to preparing for the event taken with precision, every street light made exactly on time when we get to the intersections. There are multiple reasons why all three personality types will go through different scenarios to get to the event, and we can place the blame on everything from a flat tire, to needing time to get the family together. In the end, it boils down to one understanding: your spiritual awareness is reflected by your consciousness of time. As spiritual beings, we exist in time where we decide to. These are the powers we wield when we remember a past scene or dream of a future event. There are also places within the time stream which we cling to throughout our lifetimes, that may at first been a security, but has shown itself to be a hindrance to our progress. We were meant to exist freely inside the time stream, capable of moving anywhere within and even beyond it. I have come to call this sequentially conscious, a reflection of our current spiritual path showing itself in the physical world for us to become aware of and grow. For pre- and post-sequential consciousness, all that is needed is a level of sustained consciousness within the present moment. Over time, as we realize our forever natures, the beauty of life will begin manifesting itself, colors will become more vibrant, and our connection to the world around us will strengthen. Time will reflect our awareness of self as an immortal soul, not time-bound. Many blessings will manifest not when we fight for it, but as naturally as we place our thoughts on it, for us. This is my form of meditation throughout the day. If it helps you, then I feel blessed. Pre-sequential consciousness is when our spiritual consciousness is existing in the past when we should be in our current physical lives at a later stage of progress. This shows up as performing actions within our lives far too early than should be performed. Forced parenthood could be an example here, for afterwards the spirit is placed in a never-ending spiral to achieve equally with their peers as the world moves forward. Though later in life they would consider themselves late achievers from the physical understanding, what placed them in this situation was in fact what would be considered early. Pre-sequential consciousness has the tendency to set us into situations that are prior to when we should be there. It gives to us the frantic underlining notions that we should excel continually in life so that we no longer feel guilt over our initial situation. We become stuck in the past, and though life moves forward, our consciousness remains elsewhere, unable to move past the loss of time. Do not view this in a negative way, and there are varied examples. What is to be understood is that you're existing consciously before your physical life stream of events. This is in essence neither good nor bad, merely an observation to become aware of. This could be considered by those of us who grew up too fast, or never felt like we had a childhood. This can happen by us, or through our parents, as we must consider how they too are existing within their individual life stream of events. Most physical mishaps or circumstances that occur in these ways are simply a guidepost to show us where we are at. This is so we can move our consciousness from being anchored in the past and place it back into the current moments. Spirits here, will continually hold past conversations for days attempting to relive the event. Daydreaming constantly about the past, they will rarely be present to focus on what their bodies are doing, just going through the motions. They will ask lots of questions about topics that have been said repeatedly, but will do it in a way that comes across as annoyed to have to ask. Mainly because they are struggling with being in the present moment. Post-sequential consciousness is when our spiritual life's journey is existing in the future to where we should be at in our physical lives. This shows up as performing actions within our lives that should be performed later. In the first example I gave forced parenthood. For this example we fight and want this to occur. We want so badly to prove that we are more, that we take aggressive measures to become parents. Where pre-consciousness deals with loss of childhood, post-consciousness wants to constantly move beyond childhood, seeing themselves as adults and dreaming of new horizons. For many different reasons this type of spirit tends to exist consciously in the future to where their physical bodies exist. All forms of communication exist in planning future events and there is never a dwelling on the past. There is a continued amount of achievements but never any satisfaction, for the mind is always searching for new goals. The spirit must look at the initial decision to take charge and move in this fashion to accept the current moment. It may have been influenced by other forces or parenting, but the conscious decision was to live this way. As they are continually praised by being overachievers, this becomes their identities. They seem to have a plan for everyone's lives around them. To them this is the way the world works. Most conversations are met with a solution, as if it is something to be conquered so that the attention can be placed on more important future issues. Realization of the current moment will bring fulfillment to them. They will begin to take in all they have worked hard for and appreciate those around them with a fully attentive state. Time will no longer feel like it's moving too fast around them and they will become a person that people enjoy, because they want to be, and are no longer forced to. Sequential consciousness is existing within the moment. Written and spoken about in so many ways, I just wish to address it in these contents. The signs that we are here show themselves in our physical world small at first, then begin to grow into every action we take. There is an order to life when we move about, we meet all the right people at the right time, and time itself is enriched at every moment. In conversations, others are allowed free expression without feeling hindered or lost and leave our space strengthened spiritually. Although physically minded people say this type of conversation is disconnected, it is because they cannot see how connected we actually are. We are at one with our journey and give to the universe as much as it gives in return. Over time, existing in the moment will develop and strengthen, and we will become not only conscious of ourselves, but the environment, and our societies. This may go through a phase that could be considered an overdose of input as we start to take in all sounds, conversations, and situations in what I call a blending. Calm the mind while consciously breathing. Your consciousness is seeking to expand, and only by your accepting this new state will it be able to do so. Unsequentially consciousness is when our journeys with time has taken fruit and we move beyond its confines. Many forms of meditations can take us close to this point, but it's our consciousness that moves us beyond. Once here, we are able to move into the time stream or outside of it with but a movement of our minds. Those who exist here appear ageless to others in a way that supersedes physical form. There is timelessness which emanates from their eyes, a bright mixture of life and death, and the expansive wisdom within. When they speak, they draw the entire story into their voices as they become one with the places in time which they speak of, as others are encompassed in the lessons that are relayed. They do not appear to be concerned about searching for a path and have little to do with conversations that are attached to the tasks or concerns of the physical world. Every form of conversation is made with a great amount of consciousness, and there must be a desire to move their consciousness back into the physical plane. This can be understood by the Buddhist monk that pledges their lives to staying within the timeline until all spirits are free, or the stories of spiritual leaders coming back after death and pledging never to leave the people. Though many paths will take us to awakening ourselves, only we can consciously move beyond. How we exist sequentially with time hints to our progression to overcome it. These journeys vary as to how we can better ourselves, but only when we consciously acknowledge our unity, or oneness, with the universe will we move into a point where time is no longer present. We must also move beyond these definitions of paths being right or wrong and accept them for what they add to the collective consciousness. There is in every form or literature parts that call out to us as spirits. We simply need to change the way in which we observe them with our conscious efforts. In Revelations we are told that in the ending days all will hear the word of God. As spirits, we can easily view the word as a spiritual calling, and ending days as the ending of physical consciousness, as we awaken as one. This is but one in many viewpoints we can use to bring consciousness into our life. Contemplating our place within this universe is never a bad thing, and brings forth many blessings over time. Thank you for joining me. I will begin in the next series to bring water's evolution to focus. Peaceful journeys. If you enjoyed my podcast, please consider helping my progress in any way. Please feel free to contact me, or subscribe, find me on my social networks, share, like, and of course any monetary assistance will be placed back into my work. I am a new author of just under a year and have really made my work completely within reach at just 99 cents on Amazon Kindle. The information is more important than anything, but everything helps in a collective way. Thank you again.